Welcome to the Nanoblades.
What up, Nate?
Hi, Tim. Nice new toy.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Because we just did all that manually for the first time. You can't tell because we weren't talking, but we could have been talking during that recording. And
That would have been great, right?
yeah.
That makes lots of sense.
So if you're wondering what we're talking about, I recently got a Zoom PodTrack P8 recorder, which is just a fantastic little tool if you want to record podcasts on your own. I definitely recommend looking it up, but we're playing with it for the first time today, so this is kind of fun and exciting.
Zoom, zoom.
Zoom, zoom, zoom. Yeah.
Well, so yeah, it's been a little while since we've done this.
Yes, it
so
has.
I have to apologize to Ryan Tannehill. The last time that we spoke, he was getting ready for the season, I guess.
Yeah.
And his season's already done.
Yeah. A little sooner than we anticipated, but
That you anticipated, I guess.
well, yeah, I guess that I anticipated. I thought they'd go a little further than that first round, but
yeah. But yeah, here we are. Pretty much a whole Madden rendition down.
yeah.
So I know that we haven't kept it regular, but honestly, like to our, 11 listeners, or I don't know what we're up to now.
We do this for Ryan and Ryan only.
My wife doesn't listen to it, so
She's been a guest.
she doesn't listen to it though. But yeah, like I think part of the absence is A, life happens, and B, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and C, we still have to deal with EA Tiburon. So
Well, yeah, I think that's
mostly the C.
yeah. I mean, we didn't set out to do this to get like a bunch of views or follows or listens or anything like that. We just wanted to have an outlet where we could enjoy ourselves talking about our experience with the game. And what we've noticed, if you go back and listen to our catalog of episodes, we start out pretty hopeful, and
then it becomes very negative.
yeah, becomes negative real quick. And so we end up rehashing the same things over and over, even in Madden 22, where there's quote unquote new features. There's nothing compelling us to go record a new episode because it's just why.
Yeah, we've given that feedback.
Yeah.
And it's rehashing.
Yeah.
So some of this we're going to try not to rehash, but there will be some levels of that as we're talking. But for the first time, we actually get to talk about, I guess, some of the changes, the new features, so to speak, that we've been experiencing in this version in our Madden League. Because honestly, I don't play it other than for our Madden League.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't do any of the extra modes or anything like that anymore.
No, I actually tried to once. I don't know what came over me, but I thought, you know what I'm going to do?
I mean, he lost that love and feeling.
It's it really does that. I went in and I was like, I'm going to go into Mutt and just see what it's like to see if there's anything different this year. Not that I would know because I didn't really play it before, but it's like, I'll go into Mutt. Maybe I'll find something interesting. And the one time I tried to do it, it didn't work. Like the EA servers were like, no, you can't do this. And I was like, all right, I'll take that as a sign. I've not played at all. I haven't even started the be a player career mode.
Sarita did. So my wife did, and I heard it from upstairs. I'm like, yeah, no.
Well, the same old complaint, I think, is what I keep hearing about it is like, look, we don't want these cringy cutscenes. We don't want this faux story. We want to have our own narratives. Give us choice, give us options, not the same, WB dramatized. You know, this isn't Dawson's Creek, right? Now, but since we're talking about Dawson's Creek, I do think that James Vanderbeek, who's our second listener, would be a great Ryan Tannehill in the made-for-TV movie, maybe Hallmark Channel.
I don't want his laugh. That does sound, Hallmark,
A little bit. Yeah, the majority of my time on Madden 22 has been spent making draft classes, which is typically the most fun thing for me, is doing draft classes on Madden. This year was not, because from the very beginning, I couldn't even post them.
Yeah.
I put all that work in, all that effort in, and couldn't even share it. And then by the time I could share it, like, we kind of missed the window.
Yeah.
So you can get the files, but I'm currently working on updating them to be accurate. So we did 2 classes this year, 22 and 23. And I'm going through and moving players between the two to make sure that they're people who are staying, and people who are coming out are coming out. And it's more challenging this time around because NCAA did the extra year of eligibility, super seniors, all that kind of stuff. So that's made it a little bit difficult to try to figure out who's in and who's out at some of these points. But I've been working on that and trying to digest some of the reports about the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl. And, like, that's fun because that's football.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm learning about football, and then I have to go into this little machine where they can't even figure out how to, alphabetize the colleges correctly and translate a scouting report into speed, stamina, agility. Like, some of that stuff is a challenge. When you think about, like, the ratings in Madden, they don't match how players are scouted.
Oh no.
Especially from, like, a blocking standpoint.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'd also say, like, some of the jumping stuff like that. It just, yeah. There's a lot to be desired there. I mean, programming a different interface.
Yeah, there needs to be a lot more. Something that happened with the most recent update, though, the February update, is, and this has been this way since as long as I've been making the classes, when you change the shoes in the classes, they've always just been completely black, regardless of what shoe it was. And what was interesting is, like, once the players get drafted or on a team, those shoes look completely different because they have colors. They have, like, a color scheme that matches the home and away colors or the primary color. With this new update, all the shoes now have that white and blue primary and away, primary, secondary colors built into so you can see what the shoe's going to look like to a degree when you get them on a team, which is a nice little touch. Like, it's kind of nice that that's there, but that's also, like, such a small detail that only a few people are going to notice. People like me who spend, literally hours and hours editing players. Like, I'm going to notice it, but most people aren't. And then you also wonder why didn't it do that to begin with?
Yeah, I'm a loss for words.
There's not a good answer to that.
Yeah.
But it was acknowledged by the equipment guru that it was that was something they fixed. So, like, it clearly was on somebody's list somewhere. They just weren't, it just wasn't a big deal. And I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I get hit up by people on Twitter occasionally who, like, I'll talk about little details like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about, all the, the ability to put different equipment on each arm, and
like tape on one and
right,
band on the other, or
the ability to do both.
Yeah.
Like, was it Stroud? Was it Stroud at Ohio State, CJ Stroud? was wearing, like, when I was looking at photos of him, he had like the quarter sleeves and elbow tape.
Yeah.
But I can't do that in Madden. But I can do it in the yard in Madden, right? But you can't do it in franchise mode in Madden or on the thing. And so there's little details like that. Or we've talked about a number of times the preseason schedule. You know, like how you end up in a repeating preseason schedule every year. And people have said, why do you care about this when there are bigger things broken, right? Like zones don't read correctly, or you know, these players don't play. And I kind of have to take a step back and say, just think about that for a minute. You want EA Tiburon to get individual defensive players to play to a rating and an ability as if they were a real person. But they can't alphabetize the colleges. And they can't put tape and an armband on this guy. And they can't put a mouthpiece in his mouth without it looking like it's going through his chin. But you want these players to play like they're, you know, like a legit AI Skynet robot that's going to come out of its TV. So, like, I get it. There are gameplay issues that need to be better, but if you can't get the little things right, I have no faith you're going to get the big things right. So let's talk about the little things and try to fix those. And then maybe that will lead to bigger things being better too. I don't know. Just a thought.
Touche. Sorry. So one thing is that, you know, like if, you know, those 11 listeners, I'm pretty quiet a lot of times. Mainly I get mesmerized by Tim's voice. But also one thing is, you know, being in pandemic or whatnot, I have had COVID and whatnot, and I literally can stay awake for 4 hours before I want to go to sleep. So I'm already well past that. And I just ate on top of it, which was great because I had some veggies with it. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you're ready. You need to get a little fire going, some hot chocolate.
Yeah. It's not necessarily like, so I'm fired up, but I'm just not fired.
Hey, that's all right. I got enough fire for the both of us. Now that my pilot light is working, so.
I was wondering. But yeah, I'm very much like a devil is in the details thing. That's you, like having OCD, you know, all that kind of stuff. That is half of. Yeah, that's what I do. Like I spend time like so. Unlike Tim, like he's doing draft classes, and I'm just staring at the same screen, being like, okay, is this equipment right? You know, of the players that I have actually on my roster for our league, and I'm like, okay, well, no, this is a little off, or, you know, like, can I get this head a little bit better because I have a small, and I have more than I had before, but I still, you know, like some of them don't even have like a preview thing.
Right.
And the previews really are
bad. They don't.
Yeah, I was going to use a you know, like some kind of expletive, but yes, they are bad. And but I've been able to have some variability to get a little bit of that better. The hair's really weird this year.
Yeah,
I know that they you know, that's one of the, you know, enhancements that they did or whatnot. But like Drew Lock's hair is not the real thing. Like, I was going to say I've touched that hair, but I haven't. So, but I've been up close and personal with that hair way too many times. But anyhow,
yeah, it's weird. It got weird.
Yeah, and that sounded all really funky. And I didn't mean any of it, like in a funky way. That is, yeah, I'm gonna shut up now. So let's talk about, like, I guess the big thing to start off with is you know, for years and years and years we've had the same user interface. They have changed up the user interface this year.
Yep.
although they put it over the other user interface.
Oh, dear Lord.
You know, I had to say that, otherwise Tim was definitely going to say that. You know, like early on, that kind of came out that all they did they didn't even put primer on it; they just painted over it.
Yeah, I wish I understood the like why in the development world that's a thing. You know, like why are you writing a UI over the previous UI? You know, and like it happens to me a lot when I go into the trade block. I'll go into the trade block and I'll check out a trade, and then I'll back out of it, and suddenly the background's gone, and I see my coach walking around in his office, which isn't a thing in this game. So why is it there? And like how much memory, how much space, how much code is being dedicated to keeping that in the game when it's not, you only see it when the game doesn't function properly. And it very much feels like you just painted over your wallpaper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just kind of a weird thing. And like, I think we talked a little bit about this when we saw it originally, but the UI, like there's a lot of information on the screen now.
Yeah. And I think, one thing, there's just, you're bombarded with that. I was like,
yeah,
how do I see the standings? Even at one point, I had to actually ask the group. I'm like, I'm not seeing it. I know that it's right in front of me somewhere, and sure enough, it was. But.
Yeah, I'm kind of okay with some of it, right? So like the home page, the splash page, like kind of makes sense. I feel like I understand where everything is. There's a lot of information there that I can see pretty quickly, and there's little shortcut keys that are around on things. So like, you know, like the standings are shown there at the bottom, and it'll say like triangle, and if you hit triangle, it'll pop you into the, you know, or you can go over to the league page and go into standings from there. You know, so there's some things there that work. But then there's so much, and every time you do something, it takes you back to the beginning, and like every roster change that I do, I have to go through a long list of potential roster moves and roster management things, and that's fine. You know, and then some of the things that pop up are specific to that week, and if you don't click on it correctly, then you miss that opportunity. Like with the scouting stuff, which we'll get into in a minute, and then, but like the one that gets me is I go to the news page, right? So like the next page over from the main page is the news page. And we've talked about this before, that like all of the news and the fake Twitter, all that stuff got buried, right? Mm-hmm. And it's still not front and center here, but you go into it and you've got like the screen is in 3 sections. And
it's in columns.
It's in 3 columns. And the first column is dedicated to like in-game photos.
Yeah, which I don't even have any of those game moments.
Right.
I guess I think that's what they call it. I don't even.
Yeah, I don't even.
Screenshots essentially.
Yeah, like none are being auto created for me, which is something I think it used to do.
It used to, but
to a limit. And then I'm not going in there and trying to get like these awesome photos. So it kind of goes wasted. So I've got a third of the screen going to a very small box that just shows my team logo. Mm-hmm. Right. So I've got nothing in that first third. Second third is all of your stories for that week. Mm-hmm. And their headlines. And the way the text is done, you don't know where the first headline begins and the next headline ends, right? So, or the first one ends and the next one begins. And you go through there and it doesn't click on a story necessarily. It's basically just headlines.
Yeah.
And if there's not enough stories for that week, then
there's really nothing there.
Yeah, so it's like 75% of your column isn't even filled with stories. Mm-hmm. Then you go to the third column, and that's your fake Twitter, and like there's stuff there, but a lot of it is pointless and meaningless, and some of it doesn't even make sense. Like they'll be talking about how your team needs to draft a middle linebacker, even though you got a 90 overall middle linebacker. You know, like there's little things like that.
Oh, but you need a 88 overall middle linebacker to back them up.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Not going to get into that. So then you go over to the stat page looks pretty good too. Like I like the way the stat page is laid out.
That's almost the same. It's very similar to last year's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean that one works for me.
Yep.
And the league history stuff is there, and you can get into that. But you'll see there's not a lot of stuff there. There's like 5 things you can click on, and then some of the stuff is already just kind of put up there for you. I can see who the top 3 quarterbacks, top 3 running backs, top 3 wide receivers are.
Yep. Which I like that.
Yeah.
And you can scroll through it with your right thumbstick. Is that the name thing?
The analog stick, yeah.
Yeah, thumbstick. Yeah, I do like that. But it designates still your top needs, and sometimes it's like, oh, well, you need this, and I'm like, no, I don't need a quarterback. I drafted a quarterback in the top 10.
Yeah.
But that opens up another can that we'll eventually get to.
Yeah, I think so.
But it's basically like I would almost equate it how I see it just mathematically is it's very line by line vertical, whereas in previous versions it's been very line by line horizontal to select. So it's the selections are more vertical rather than horizontal. And most of the information is handled vertically rather than horizontally.
Yeah. And I don't think the UI is a failure.
No.
I think it's
plain though.
It's plain. There's some aspects of it I like, some aspects of it that I'm indifferent about, some aspects of it I don't like. I think it's definitely influenced. It feels influenced, and I could be wrong about this, but it feels influenced by Deuce Douglas, who did a lot of mock-ups, but his mock-ups looked better than what they've got in there. And that's not his fault. That's just the tools they have to work with. And he's not a game designer.
No.
You know, he's more or a developer. I don't know which one he would consider himself, but he's not writing the code. Right. But it's different to do something in Photoshop than it is to make a game.
He's a designer, not a developer. that
And that's the thing that kind of makes a difference. But if you look at his mock-ups, his pages were always very busy.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's a stylistic thing that some people will like, some people won't like. And I can get used to either or as long as I can find what I need.
Yeah. And for the most part, I find what I need other than that one hiccup that I had. Because I was trying to determine, okay, should I trade for a different draft choice or not? Should I keep mine, being the Jets this year?
Yeah.
My 2 first rounders that I had, that kind of thing. And I ended up keeping them. Yeah, I kept them. And then, I did some other moves, but yeah.
Yeah. So the UI, not bad, not great.
Yeah.
It's there. It was a change and cool.
I guess let's go into some of the the user interface stuff that you're going to find in there as far as I guess Let's start with scouting because it's there all the time now.
Yeah, okay.
I guess, which is good. That it's there all the time. It's always accessible. But is it really scouting?
No. It does not feel. This is not an improvement.
I like some of the concepts, but it's so standoffish. It's made for automation.
Yeah. It's not engaging, and
exactly.
I've kind of put this out there before on Twitter about kind of the thing that games like NCAA 14 did that more recent versions of Madden do. And look, I know there are older versions of Madden that were engaging. I played those. My comparison is the last NCAA game that I got to play versus the most recent Madden game. I care about what's happening in NCAA 14. And I care about the recruiting process. I'm really indifferent about the scouting process here, and it's set because nothing changes from week to week.
Nope.
Now, I mean, technically, some players are moving up and down the board, but I don't know if you ever look at those numbers. The numbers don't even seem right. Well, this guy moved up 110 spots. Well, did he? Because
he was an undrafted free agent.
Right. Well, but sometimes it's that guy last week was number 10.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so he
sometimes
didn't really move up 110 spots.
Yeah,
So that's, like there's just little things like, I know that guy was always projected as a first rounder. So there's just little things like that. And then we discovered too with the mock drafts. So like if a mock draft drops, it will put the first player you have in your
board, your
favorites list. So maybe you don't favorite who you're going to take in the first round, but you have like an undrafted free agent that you want to hit up in the 6th or 7th round. If you've got that guy at the top, it's going to say that he's the guy you're going to draft first.
Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting. And so there's a few things you can do with that strategically. When we did this in our first draft,
it actually works pretty good. Like,
yeah, we were picking 1 and 2, and you and I disguised who we were taking. So then the guy that was picking 3 was like, oh, I didn't expect these guys to be here. I thought you guys were taking them. So
and he panicked a little bit.
Yeah. So it was good, so there's some fun strategy to that.
Yeah.
So that's an aspect of it. So like some of that makes sense, and I like the effort there. I like having scouts that focus on different areas so that you can't necessarily scout everything.
Yeah.
But to your point, it feels a lot like you're scouting nothing.
And the tough thing is like on top of that, like that you're not scouting anything is the major traits. So let's say if you're trying to look for, and I'm going to use this term because they don't use it in the game, if you're looking for a 3-4 edge,
right,
rusher, and well, yeah, it's looking at everything other than power moves and finesse moves.
The only thing that matters,
yeah,
pass rusher, yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, strength, speed, all that's important, but I literally, I'm like, well, I think I like this guy.
Right. And that's something that I want to point out that I like about this is like before you had to wait to the combine to find out anything about their physical attributes. Now you have an idea.
Yeah.
Before you
very good elite, like I love that.
Yeah, that was fantastic, right? The other thing that I like about that is it shows you their traits, and it shows them in like scouting notes, right? So like Sarita noticed in our last draft, like quarterback, it talked about their release. Well, that release is telling you what animation they have for passing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. Or like this guy never really covers the ball. Well, then he's got a low covering ability, or it lets you know if a quarterback's oblivious to the pass rush, or this guy has problems with his hands because he drops the ball a lot. Which is that's not an actual trait, which is kind of interesting too. Like some of the things, like I'm not sure what they're drawing the.
Well, I think maybe catching on that one.
But catching is
catching traffic.
It's a rating. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like that's instead of a trait. So like some of that stuff, I'm not really sure where they're getting it from, but it. Yeah, like I don't know. There's been times too where I'm like, well, I made that. I said that guy covers. Against medium hits, but it says that he rarely covers the ball. I'm like, well, he covers against medium and heavy hits. Like, what? That's better than nothing, isn't it?
They make it busy to do something that you could just get in one really quick glimpse.
Yeah,
I guess, and it's like busy work, essentially. Not from a scouting standpoint. It's actually pretty boring, like as the the builder of a team or whatnot. But
yeah. Well,
but yeah, there's some information there.
Now, what would be nicer is if it changed over the season, or grew over the season, or developed over the season. Yes. So maybe you don't have all of them at the beginning, but you have more at the end if you focused on that player. Or maybe it tells you at the beginning that this offensive lineman is a non-disciplined. They have a lack of discipline and they get called a lot for flags and holds, right? Well, what if like partway through the season it's like they've really cleaned this up?
Well, that would be a great thing, but then that would mean improvement of the
right.
Franchise mode.
Right. And that's something too, like if you download one of my draft classes, you'll find very few people with undisciplined traits because you can't change their traits.
Or their dev trait for offensive line.
Right. So
yeah.
Anyway, so I hate like saying this guy will never be disciplined as a player. Like that's just silly to me. But like to your point again, you say you're wanting to know about wide receivers. Well, I got this wide receiver 80% scouted, it says. So at 80%, I think I can tell that he's a route runner or he's a like what his archetype is.
Yep, the archetype is handy.
Right, but I'm only going to get maybe 4 players rated high enough to be able to find out what archetypes are. And then like even if I know his archetype, I still may not know his catching rating, which it's like I should know. I don't need to know the number. I need to know the grade. Does he have a C hand? Does he have a B hands? Does he have A hands? Like what are his hands like?
What if he doesn't have hands, Tim?
Right. Right.
You didn't see the look that I shot Tim there.
I'm sorry for not being more inclusive. But like, okay, here's a case in point. I told you I've been working on these draft classes, right? A simple Google search of a player will get me just a little blurb about what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are from
Super
a number.
easy.
There's so many people out there who are scouting players that I can get a lot of information very quickly and very easily about what I want to know about. So if I can do that, then why would an NFL team with a scouting department not be able to get access to something like that after a year's worth of scouting? It doesn't make any sense to me, which is why I think that I'm not a fan of complete fog of war. I'm a fan of, like, say everything has a rating, but it could be wrong. And the more time you spend on a player or a position group, the more those ratings kind of come in and center in on where it
They go into focus.
Right. So maybe it's a range. Like, well, their hands, like at times they're a D and at times they're a B. Okay, well, are they a C? Well, after like 4 weeks, they're probably about a C. And then after another 4 weeks, no, actually, they're really looking like a B.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and because it focuses in because you looked at those wide receivers or you did something with that player. But like even the players I bring in for personal workouts, I could make them like my targeted guys in week 11, and I could bring them in for a personal workout and still not get 100% if my national scout isn't like a level 3 rating their particular position.
Yeah.
Right. So it's tough because nobody goes into the draft looking at just one position.
Yeah. You're very limited.
Yeah.
You really have to. You have to pick. It'll be interesting. So.
Yeah. But it's so much like guessing though.
You know, it's less information than last year's version.
Despite appearing to show more information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of gamble within that.
Yeah. Now, something I like. I know a few people in our league complain about this. When you draft, it doesn't tell you what the rating is.
Nope.
Which I actually like that.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't like draft a player in the second round and be like, oh, this guy isn't as good as I thought he was. I'm going to take another person at this position later. You know, like you get your guy and then you find out when you get him to camp whether or not he was actually as good as you thought he was, right? So I like that element of it. Because then you stay true to what your draft plan is instead of like now adjusting mid-draft based off what a player's overall is.
Yeah.
You know, and so when we talk about stuff like scouting and team developing and like this is another thing that people like are like, why do you care about this when the thing doesn't when like players can't play zones correctly is, drafting AI. And that's the thing. Like, if you can't get a team to understand that they drafted a quarterback in the first round last year, then how are they going to get a defensive back to know the difference between a cover 2 and a cover 3? Because this is a pure numbers game. This is a lot more subjective, right? So I think we look at it, we keep seeing it. Teams go out and they draft quarterbacks, and they're mocked to draft quarterbacks, even though they have a 94 overall quarterback with 3 years left on their contract. Why would they be taking a quarterback in the first round? And so you look at team building, you look at how rosters are constructed, you look at how teams draft, how teams sign free agents. The worst thing in Madden, the worst factor, the thing that ruins team building is overall ratings. That's my take. That's my hot take for today. There you go. Hot take, Tim, right there. Okay. Yeah, no, you know what, here, the people love it. Okay? The people love it. Yeah. Hot takes. Oh, wait, you want some more of that? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, he's got that one on there too.
Maybe later. But okay, but hear me out, right? So the game, you drafted a quarterback. So let's say you use my draft classes and you drafted a quarterback in the first round in this draft. So let's say you took Carson Strong. Okay? Because you were drafting at the end of the first round, and the guys you really wanted were
and I wanted that 5th-year option, but he's really a second rounder. Okay.
Right, exactly, right? And look, before you hate on the ratings on those quarterbacks, and these quarterbacks are not as good as last year's quarterbacks. There might be some future upside for some of them, but like these are your yeah. But that's beside the point, right? Okay, so but you draft Carson Strong and you're committed to Carson Strong. You draft him. He's a 68 overall. Okay.
Cool. I got to develop him.
You got to go develop him, right? So the next season comes around, and what does the game say that you need more than anything?
Oh, well, you know what? I think I need another quarterback.
Exactly. The game is going to say, well, you need a quarterback, even though you've got a 23, 24-year-old quarterback who you drafted as a 68 overall. After a year's worth of play, he's now, say he's a 72 overall because you did really well. Okay. So he's developed up to a 72 overall after one season, but the game says, you probably should be drafting a quarterback. Okay. Well, how do I know I'm going to get like a good quarterback, right? Or let's take another example, real life example. Detroit Lions. Okay. They have Jared Goff. Mm-hmm. Do you know what Jared Goff's rating is in Madden?
76, I think.
Yeah, about a 76. Okay. What is the highest rated quarterback in the draft class that I put out?
74?
71.
71. Okay.
Right. So now the scout part of the scouting thing is like stories might change their ratings, so you might have a different experience, right?
Okay.
So let's say Detroit decides to draft Sam Howell,
which they did in our game.
Right. He's not going to play.
No.
Now in real life, if Detroit is drafting a quarterback in the first or second round, they want him to challenge Jared Goff.
He's going to challenge. I still think so. This is actually a strong possibility in real life.
Yeah.
So I think they would bring him in and have an open competition. I don't think that he would start right off the bat, though.
Yeah, you're probably correct. Okay,
but there would be an intent there.
Well, let's go back to last year. Let's talk about Tua and Fitzpatrick, right? So you got Fitzpatrick playing.
I thought we were not going to talk about this.
Oh, we're going to talk about it. You got Fitzmagic playing, and they decide they're going to, like, halfway through the season, and however you feel about it, they decide it's time to move on to our future. Okay. That won't ever happen in Madden.
No.
So the player you draft is going to be a 70 to a 74 overall, say, and your starter's a 76 overall, but he's 33 and on his way out the door. at no point can you beat him in a competition because your overall is still lesser than his overall. The AI, the game is going to say a 76 overall is always going to start over 74 overall, which is why then you end up with a situation where in our league, say, the Chargers draft Desmond Ritter because somebody went and took Herbert off their team. Don't get me started. So they go and they get Desmond Ritter.
Oh well, no. Let's take one step back here. They signed Mitch Trubisky in the offseason.
They signed Mitch Trubisky and then they draft Desmond Ritter. Both guys are 71 overall. One is young. One has like 8 years in the league. Which one are you starting and developing? Which one are they starting and developing?
Gus Frerotte.
I wasn't expecting a Gus reference. Love me some Gus, but you see my point, right? So then think about that, and you can then compare that to how NCAA 14 ran, and I'm trying to tie all this together here about overall ratings. So think about when I'm playing NCAA 14, I go out and I recruit an athlete. And that athlete, after I get him on my team, he's a 5-star athlete. He'd be a 72 overall as a quarterback. He'd be a 75 overall as a wide receiver. And he'd be a 77 overall as a corner. Okay? So I look at my roster and I say, well, look, I got 4 wide receivers in the 80s. I've got 2 quarterbacks in the 80s. And like my best corner is a 75. So he's at least as good, if not better, than my best corner. So I'm going to make him a corner, okay? So I make him a corner, and he's now my starting corner, right? In NCAA 14, he could be my starting corner, but he could also be my 5th wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say I had 4 quarterbacks on my roster. 2 of them are in the 80s. 2 of them are freshmen, so I redshirt them. Well, he could be my 3rd-string quarterback because he was an athlete. He played quarterback in high school, right? Think about Denver last year having to play a wide receiver at quarterback. You can't do that in Madden, right? And I think one of the biggest...
Like Blake Bortles.
Right. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed where that's an issue is with wide receiver and running back, right? So like you've seen me run my offense. I'm running with Atlanta. I'm trying to do the Cordero Patterson thing where I've got a wide receiver type player coming out as a third down running back. And you can put that running back in as a slot receiver, but he can't be on my receiver list.
Yeah.
Right? So I draft a guy that could be either a running back or a wide receiver, but I have to choose which one he's going to be. And you look at how they look at that in game, and instead of making it so that you can do both, what they do is they create new playbooks. So like think Taysom Hill and the Saints. Saints start using Taysom Hill as a fullback and a running back and a tight end. So you have to use the Saints playbook where it specifically uses your QB3 as your tight end or your QB3 in those sets, right?
Or a sub package that you have to stick over,
right?
With the thummy button.
Exactly.
Thummy stick.
Exactly. So they do that to make that a thing, but it's not organic. It doesn't feel good. It creates more layers of complexity. Now, on the other side of it, let's say they went with the way NCAA does it, where NCAA just puts the top-rated guy in the thing. Okay, let me tell you where that went wrong in NCAA. My offensive line. So my offensive line, I've got all offensive line, like quality guys starting offensive line. But, as you do in NCAA, you start to blow out a team and they decide we're going to put in all the backups because, you don't need to have your starters out here.
But at least they had a button for that second string.
Right. Yeah.
And third string.
You had a way you could go do that. Well, they go and they change that out, and guess who's now my starting left guard? Well, it was my starting fullback, and my right tackle was my starting tight end. Now, you going out and putting a fullback and a tight end, but that overall rating makes them seem like they're the best option to play guard or tackle, right? So let's say you take that out in Madden. Now you've got running backs that the AI is saying that guy's going to play wide receiver because he's fast and has really good hands, and we're going to run him as your 3rd wide receiver. He's going to be your slot receiver, even though maybe that's not what the team would be doing in that situation. So when you create the freedom for the player to do it, you create a system where the AI puts the wrong players in the wrong spots, which is why it's so limited. And what does it base it off of? It bases it off of the overall rating. So, I've said all that to say, I think the biggest issue with team building in Madden is the importance of the overall rating. There's too much weight on the overall rating and not enough emphasis on game plans and like schemes, what the coach wants to do. I think a lot of players are equally talented, but some will thrive better in different schemes with different coaches in different roles than they would with somebody else, which is why the quarterback that I think was probably the least talented in the draft last year, Mac Jones, is very successful in New England versus how some of the other quarterbacks have played in their locations because of his situation.
Yeah. Scheme, situation, depth.
Yeah. He's in the perfect place for him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like Trevor could be in the perfect place for him if he had like a functional organization draft him, instead of the Jaguars.
Jaguars.
Fields might get there.
Jaguars.
Trey Lance might be popping next year.
I think Trey Lance is in probably one of the best situations.
Yeah. But so for long term, Trey Lance might be in the best situation, but immediately you're getting a performance out of Mac Jones.
Oh, yeah.
But in Madden, even if Mac Jones puts up that performance, he's still only a 74, 75, 76 at the end of the season. And so they're going to go sign like somebody off the free agency that's an 80. Or they're going to look at, they're going to accept a trade from a user team because, this is a better guy.
Luckily they haven't done that in our league, but I definitely could see that happen. Like, the Bears with their first round pick, their first round pick in 2 years because of the Justin Fields trade. Yeah, they picked Bryce Young.
Yeah,
it's like okay, he's just gonna sit on their bench. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's overall it's a thing.
It's a thing. So anyway, that was a bit of a tangent off of the.
It was a real big tangent.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man, but like the scouting, all that, going back to scouting, I think that's like the root of the problem. But then with scouting, like you have to have a way to really make you feel like the players you're drafting.
Yeah, and I don't really feel that.
Right.
With this, it has potential, but it's just not there yet.
I'm okay with a system where there are players I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
If I have the ability to know a lot about players that I wanted to focus on.
Yeah.
And like I'll pick players to focus, and I still only know 60% of anything about them.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's silly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so scouting,
Scouting could be better. I like that it's there all the time.
It's there all the time, but it does nothing.
And that's it. Like, so if I'm on the waiver of okay, well, am I going to make this trade so I free up this position and, in the off season or something like that, okay, do I feel like there's somebody that maybe, okay, in either the free agent or the draft that I can do? Yeah. I could look at that and kind of gauge that and say, okay, well, yeah, I think this is the route that I'm going to go. I'm switching from a 4-3 to a 3-4, and okay, well, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, I've found that. I think hopefully I'll be able to unlock the archetype to figure that out.
Yeah. Last thing on scouting, we touched on it briefly, but like there are times where like say you want to go in and choose your 3 focus players.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
On your menu, it gives you the option to enter the scouting or to go choose your 3 players, which is also within scouting. If you choose to just go into scouting, you can't choose your 3 players. It's done automatic for you. And when people showed that to EA, the response was, yeah, it's designed that way. And the guy who was most responsible for this was Andre, was like, yeah, I don't like it, but that's how it's designed. Okay, well, thanks for the honesty, but like, why then? You know, not that he could answer. He's not a developer either.
Or a scout.
Or a scout. Zing!
Yeah.
So so there's just little things like that, and that is par for the course for Madden. All over the place, there's little things like that that just don't add up, and don't work right.
Yeah. Kind of speaking to scouting, like, and this is, and you know, I want to briefly just go into this. I think it's cool that they have, you know, some former players that you can hire as scouts and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
But other than that, like, it's just, okay, are they 1, 2, or 3?
Yeah, there's no depth.
You know, what position do you want to scout? That's it. And then it's like, okay, well, I can't really change that unless I fire them.
Yeah. Well, something that you and I haven't done is we haven't even played deep enough into a franchise mode to know if these guys retire, like from a coaching standpoint or a scout standpoint. Do they retire? Do other people take over? Are there new people introduced?
Yeah.
And like, you just don't know.
Yeah. It's the same thing with, you know, coaches, you know, your staff, you know, okay, well, I got these 2 trees to work with, and okay, well, you know, what if I change my system? What if I, you know, like,
yeah,
what kind of effect are they going to be hired in the off season by another team, and, you know, as their, you know, head coach or something like that, you know,
yeah,
those kinds of things. But there's not a whole lot that you could really do. You could do a little bit more with the staff for coaches than you can, because those impact, you know, like the depth and your positions.
Yeah.
You know, but that's it.
Yeah, and there's really not a differential between each offensive coordinator and each defensive coordinator, or even each coach. Like, there needs to be, so they need to have a broader tree, right? And so, like, since we're just talking about staffing at this point, like, they need to have a broader tree that's developed around their archetype specialties, right? Or their playbook schemes, right? So, like, I remember you said something the first time we were going through the staffing. You were like, I want to hire a guy who's got like who's got the scheme that I use. Well, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but for me, again, my OCD is like taking over, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't. What the heck? You know, like, I can't. I want to run a West Coast spread, right?
Okay. So what if, like, the second you invest, you know, your first point into the West Coast spread part of the tree, you can no longer put it into the power zone run.
Nope.
Because you're in West Coast, you're a West Coast specialist, right? And then maybe you hire, maybe you're the head coach and you're a West Coast spread, and you hire a offensive coordinator who's a power run. So maybe now he helps your team a little bit in that, like, mix it up a little bit here or there, you know. But, you know, maybe he also hurts your team because he's not in sync with what you're doing as a coach, right? You know, so like, yeah, so you got to fire him. You got to let him go. So, you know, you don't meet our scheme and we're having trouble with this aspect, or you know what, like, your abilities help this happen, but I need abilities that help something else happen. So we need you to leave, you know, philosophical differences, and we're going to bring in somebody else that's going to make more sense for us as a team.
But just remember that, you know, with the way that it is right now, is if I want to change the staff, I've got to fire one just to see who's available.
Yeah, you can't even see who's out there as a staff member unless you fire the guy. And let's be clear about firing and hiring. There's no, like, negotiation. You're just like, yeah, I take you. No, you're gone. Wait, no, come back. Yeah, I'm gonna fire you again. Oh no, I'm gonna bring you back. There's no negotiation. There's no trust. There's no, like, oh, you know what? You fired me. I'm not coming back. You know, like, those things exist in other games.
Yeah.
You know, so, like, let me see who's out there. You know what? Show me what coaches are on the hot seat, like NCAA used to do, so I know who's getting fired and what positions might be available next year. I think that would be really cool. But it doesn't matter what offensive coordinator I plug in because I've got the exact same tree regardless.
Yep. And so what I did was that for a whole first season, basically, I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to do my personnel and my coaching tree for my head coach, and that's it. I'm not going to focus on the offensive and defensive coordinators on purpose so that I don't, deduct because I know that I want to make changes just because I'm OCD.
Sure. And then what happened when you did that? You went out and you said, okay, these guys are available. I'm going to you hired like Cliff Kingsbury as your offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And who was your
And I was surprised Staley as my defensive coordinator because they were fired.
Right.
Which the Kingsbury thing I kind of get, but
Staley's too quick. That's too soon.
Yeah.
But, he didn't have a team because he let his team trade off his starting quarterback and all that in our league. But anyway, I digress again. So, it let you hire them, and then when we advanced to the next week, they were gone. They got offered head coaching jobs somewhere else.
Well, maybe they wanted to be my coordinator.
Right. Well,
because I'm.
The game put you in a situation. You're just so awesome.
You didn't see my I did this cool little white person. I'm trying to be hard. I'm like Kip from Napoleon Dynamite.
Darn, it feels good to be a gangster.
Mom goes to college.
Oh man. So the coaches, where were we? Yeah, so the game doesn't tell you suddenly these guys are gone because they got offered a better job. You're already doing something with the free agency that makes sense, where you're making a bid and you find out the next week if you won the bid or not, right? Just use that. Just do that system, but with the coaches.
I mean, other games that have franchise modes do that.
Yes, they do. It's clearly not impossible to do. So, yeah. So staffing,
yeah, that's really that's just the quick thing. Yep, there's just has to be a lot more to it.
I do like the abilities more, or the what you're investing your coach points into, than what was in the previous version.
Oh yeah. I like the trees and stuff like that. I now that I'm I have a staff and everything like that. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm getting such and such for say edge. What is it? Pursuit or something like that.
Sure.
Or they don't use edge. It'd be defensive end and tackle. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Dumb. But it's just okay. It's something slightly different, but a lot more needs to be done. Yeah.
Yeah. If they can develop on top of it, the problem I perceive is the game is already so bad. And like we talked about with the UI, they're just painting over the bad parts. Mm-hmm. So they're building on top of bad things and just getting worse things, or things that could have been good but aren't because the system's so broken already.
Yeah.
Like hiring coaches, hiring coaches in Madden 21 was the worst experience ever. It was awful. It was worse than this. Because at least in Madden 22, when you hire a coach, if that coach leaves you, you have the opportunity to hire another one.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas you were just, okay, done.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I guess, since we're kind of talking about that vertical, homepage or whatnot, that's where you're going to get a lot of your scenarios, your game plans, training, stuff like that. What do you think about those things?
I like it. I like some of it. Some of it I don't.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we keep saying, right?
Yeah.
So like game planning, I like better than what training looked like previously.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Okay, so I get that like Twitch streamers think mini games are the bee's knees because they get streams with that. They get hits on their streams with that, right? But I don't like going through.
I don't like going through a drill.
Right. I don't need that. I don't need that.
Yeah.
That's a waste of time to me.
Yeah.
I don't need that. I don't want that. But like the way you set up the game plan, it does seem to be more authentic. It does feel more like it's keeping track of what's actually happening with the teams, what they're actually play calling is. The pages are also so wordy in the game plan screen that I oftentimes don't even read them, you know. And then like where you're at in the game planning, like it also wasn't obvious at the beginning, like how to go in and change your workout.
Oh yeah, your fatigue and
Right.
you know, like so full pads, half pads,
Right, exactly.
you know, balance, splits, backups, or starters.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But like those options, I really like. I thought that was a good addition to the game for that element. And so then you go through that training process, and you pick. Okay, this is my game plan. It gives me a plus or minus in different areas for the game for different players.
Mm-hmm.
Like because we worked on this, I like that element, right? And then you can go in and like as you grow your coaching staff and you grow your training staff, you can start having more focused players. So you don't have just 3 guys. I've got it up to 6 guys now, right?
Yeah.
So I can have 6 players that I'm getting extra XP bonuses with because I've developed my staff to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have it right away. I had to earn it and build it and grow it. And that's cool. I like that. I like that element. And I love having a bunch of rookies and second year players that I can focus on and not have to narrow it down. So like that was good. And then kind of it goes into the staffing stuff. You then have to pick your goals for each staff member essentially. And that gets you staff points that you can spend on them. And that's part built into the training aspect. And some of that's good, but here's where I don't like that. So like some of it's pretty straightforward. Throw 2 touchdown passes. Okay. Some of it I really like, get 3 sacks, but 3 sacks is worth 4 points. If you get 2 sacks, you get 1 point, right? It's like, okay, you could still get something for almost getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the ones I do a lot is 15 first downs because I can typically get that pretty easy.
Yeah.
There are times where I can't because I break too many long plays and then I don't get it. And this is something that I don't understand from a development standpoint. Because this has happened to me where I'm in the 4th quarter and I've got 13 first downs and I need like 2 more first downs and I'm on their 20-yard line and I break a run and I am literally debating, do I score a touchdown or run out of bounds? Because I don't know if I'll get the ball back to get enough first downs.
Yep.
If I score a touchdown, that should be a first down. Should be counted like a first down to me, right?
Yeah.
Like if I break an 80-yard touchdown, no, I didn't get 15 touchdowns, but you know what? I got 80 yards of from the line of scrimmage. I scored. Why am I being penalized for scoring? Why am I contemplating not scoring in order to get development points? Because if I'm scoring, then I did my job, right? So I think there's some tuning that needs to be done in that regard. Because look, it's not the worst thing. Nothing's going to be perfect. But that's an element that bothers me about that system.
Yeah.
You know,
Or the thing that my wife will laugh is like I'll break some big long pass or something like that. Well, my goal was 5 touchdowns in one game, running touchdowns.
right.
So I literally I squeeze out at the 1 foot line. She's like, what the heck? And I squeeze out and I was like, no, I got to get my goal.
I gotta,
She's like, what the heck are you doing? So I'm not putting up that huge, like touchdown number or something like that. But I'm putting, I'm able to get my rushing touchdown one, and
That's
yeah.
those goals. The game's not smart enough to understand the context of the football. And then the last thing for me about the game plan and training is once you've played your game, you can't go back in and do free practice.
That drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I'll consistently do. I want to play with my players and my team, and I want to be able to, say, learn a new playbook. Like I'm on my 10,000th playbook this season too, because that's what I'm trying to, that's something that I'm doing to kind of keep it alive for me. Is okay, well, I'm just going to change this playbook because I like some of these ideas or concepts a little bit more, and I want to be able to do this more successfully because of my personnel. So I changed my playbook, but I can't practice it. So I literally will have to hold off on playing my game just so I can practice my playbook.
Yeah.
Because that makes sense.
Yeah, because teams don't practice.
I mean, we're talking about practice.
Practice, man.
Not a game. Not a game. Not a game.
Not a game. Practice.
Practice.
It's sad. Like that's such a funny clip, but at the same time, there's a lot of depth behind that actual story.
Well, yeah. I actually know the whole thing. Like it was pretty, and that's the reason why he went on that tangent. But anyhow,
yeah. So
yeah,
nothing but love for AI.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, so build in some scenarios. I think my favorite one from last night was I took a picture of this here, and it was get 2+ so get 2+ combined sacks and tackles for loss with right outside linebacker, and it's my rookie against the Rams to continue his breakout. I played the Rams in the third preseason game of, and I don't play the Rams in the opening game of the season.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the only one who got
that
scenario type thing. And I'm like, okay, even if I get it, is it going to count it?
Yeah. Complete a goal against a team you're not playing.
It's great.
Some of the little locker room scenes are really bad too, because the players are the sideline players and not fully fleshed out players, which is just, how can they not have that figured out yet?
Yeah, they actually have the patch for the name.
Yeah.
But no name on the patch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and there's plenty of documentation of those things just going poorly. Like guys who said they were going to retire and then they got traded away. And then they played well, so then they came back in their other team's uniform to let the coach know that since the team was playing well, they weren't going to retire. You're like, that's great. Get out of my locker room. You don't play here anymore.
I should have done that.
Yeah. So the ones that I keep getting are like, anytime I have to play another user late in the season, they're always on a winning streak. And so then there's like we all get a +10 and some random statistic because they're hot and we're excited about trying to knock them off course. And the other one I always get is I always have to play against Chad, and he's Philadelphia, and I always have to play him at Philadelphia in the playoffs. And every time it's a blizzard.
Yep. I had 2 blizzards in a row this past year.
Yeah.
I play in MetLife Stadium, I think it's still called, in New York, and it's always a blizzard in the playoffs. Always.
Yeah. So I like that there's some new scenarios. There's these little press conference moments too. Look, it's not perfect. Half the issue with those is the fact that the game is so glitchy. But I feel like they finally are evolving scenarios where they introduced it the first year and then they didn't do anything with it.
Yeah. They're definitely evolving them. I actually like the scenarios where so you have a wide receiver group, and so the group is actually progressing along.
See, I haven't had that.
Yeah, see, I had that, and I was like, oh, cool. So like 1 week it's this person, and he's like, oh yeah, but I saw this, and the other one's getting the mentorship role type stuff. So I kind of like some of those. It's a little bit of a breath of fresh air. I don't know where it's going though, as I'm doing it though. That's the only thing.
And from what I understand too, there are no breakout scenarios for quarterbacks this year,
which makes sense because stats are a little stupid.
Yeah, there's a lot of high stats, but like quarterbacks can't break out.
No.
Yeah, I mean it just seems weird.
They don't get rashes.
I mean they're not offensive linemen. Hang your head and shave. I love it.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I think some of these things have definitely evolved.
Yeah.
Towards the right direction.
And I could definitely see like Deuce's
influence
in that, and so I'm thankful of that. Is it perfect? No. Is it better? Sure, for the most part.
In some ways.
And there's some weirdness to it here and there, or glitchiness, I guess, because the foundation of the programming is
it's bad.
From 10 years ago almost. So yeah. Anyhow.
Yeah, I think it actually goes back further than that. But yeah. So some of the stuff decent. Some of the stuff maybe feels like it went the wrong direction while trying to go the right direction. Like I think scouting maybe isn't hitting the mark the way we thought it should.
I think that they just really have Stockholm syndrome. They need to go one direction.
That's what it's got.
I've been trying to get him to use it the whole time.
I was actually trying to do this one. Goodness. So,
okay.
Well, part of the problem, I think, too, is they have the wrong people working on certain aspects of the game.
Yeah, and the imperfect product is the ecosystem of a imperfect developer studio, I mean, it's just, and yeah, I'm not asking for perfection or anything like that, but there's clearly
there's something missing here.
Yeah. And that's,
yeah. So gameplay.
Yes.
For the most part,
crappy.
Yeah. The gameplay doesn't feel much different to me, which, it's not good. It's not great. And the thing that really stands out to me is that defensive backs tend to be either amazing or awful, right?
But they're always amazing for the computer, the CPU teams.
Yeah. Well, like I'll play against another user and their DBs will kill me, or my DBs will not.
Because that press coverage and those, 85 fifth stringers.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or you have a situation where wide receivers don't play the ball.
Oh,
it's like this is their job. Wide receiver's job is to go get the ball. A defensive back's job is not to go get the ball. A defensive back's job is to prevent you from catching the ball, right? But they play the ball better than your wide receivers will.
Mm-hmm. What you're really saying is that they are who they thought they were.
No. That's not what I'm saying.
Try it. No. No, like it I don't think that a 6'6" wide receiver is gonna get out jumped because that's his thing, and yet he gets out jumped.
Yeah, and
by a guy who's 5'9".
Right. And you and I were talking about this too. Sometimes the issue is ball trajectory, and it doesn't seem like you have enough input on how that ball is going to.
It's too flat.
Yeah, it's too flat. It's not up and over. It's on a line more often than not. And that's, like, because I know immediately you're going to get somebody, what are you doing, the bullet pass? It's like, no, not every pass. Not every pass is a bullet pass. You can, I've had a lob before and it said lob and it was on a line. It's like, because the game doesn't function properly.
But the lobs have too much arc,
Yeah.
I would say. Like whenever it actually does lob, the trajectory, if it's anything beyond 20 yards, which is, it's the physics of it. I think it's kind of, there's something just not there. And, you could try to compensate by using directional and stuff like that, but it's a battle you're not going to win.
Yeah. And then depending on who your quarterback is and what their traits are and what their ratings are, they may just throw up a duck for no reason. Yeah,
that's like 10 yards beyond right to the defensive back. Like literally that's just standing there.
Right. And like I get it, ratings need to matter. Some of that stuff needs to matter, but it also needs to make sense when it's happening, right? And so sometimes the context feels like it's absent. And so you don't understand why your quarterback's throwing so poorly.
Yeah, who do you think that we are? Blake Bortles?
Apparently. I'm not hitting that drum set.
So yeah, defensive back AI zones are like, so if you're in a cover 4, you're going to get torched.
Yeah.
So don't use a cover 4. It's just one of those things. Like if I see a cover 4, I'm like, oh, I'm going to at least have one route that's going to do this.
Yeah.
And if I do this route right, it's just going to glitch it. But that's not how I want to play the game, unlike other people in our league. And he's eyeing the, the whole thing. But zones are just, they're wacky. Man-to-man can be wacky too. And so I'm always having this, well, I don't really know if this is going to be safe for me to play.
Yeah.
Like against certain play styles or whatnot, I'm like, well, I'm trying to play it safe, but I'm giving this up, and even though I'm doing all of these adjustments and everything like that, there's always going to be a hole there, but
yeah. Well, it's like,
yeah,
I'll be playing a guy and he'll be running he'll run the exact same play against two different things. Like I'll run a cover 3 and he'll have like somebody crossing and that person's always going to be open at some point in that zone. And then he'll run the same play and I'll run in man coverage and the cross is still going to just outrun the man coverage. Like that happens to me a lot. Which on the other side of the ball, my receivers never seem to outrun anybody. They seem to always get jammed up by whatever DB they're playing. And like, so it feels really unbalanced to me. It feels like
it's all or nothing.
Yeah. It's like, it's very hit or miss. And then if you don't have a pass rush, then they're going to always complete a pass regardless of who it is. Unless it's your quarterback. They could have a 3-man rush against your quarterback and he's going to feel the heat even though nobody's getting to him and he's going to throw incomplete because he just can't think.
I'm not going to start singing Power Station here.
Thank you.
I'm going to put that Robert Palmer back in that pocket.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Yeah. And then, I find too, like once I figure out what a defense is running, there'll be a certain run play that always will work against certain types of defenses, or at least 4 out of 5 times, which is all you need. And sometimes like I'll see AI defenses adjust on occasion, but then it always goes back to, what it was originally. So there's little things there, exploitative things that you'd like to see the AI do a little bit better. And we've kind of covered this a little bit, but the game is super glitchy too. So one of the things that we keep running into is in the preseason, we go through and we can't finish our games. Like we get to the end of the game and it just goes into that Madden screen, which we got a patch that said they fixed it, but they didn't because it's still there.
Yeah.
And it only seems to happen to us in the preseason.
And I'm convinced that it has to do with something with roster sizes.
I don't know. I've had the same roster size and had it work, and had the same roster size and have it not work. So I don't know. But if I do play as just offense, I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
But check this out. So if I play as the offense and they got the ball first, okay, and so I'm supposed to get the ball at the half. If I have the ball going into like the final moments of the second half, of the final moments of the first half, if I score a touchdown,
yep,
it will line up and say in the second half I'm kicking off, even though I should be getting the ball. So there's been more than one game I've played that way, where I've kicked off twice. I kicked off at the beginning of the game and I kicked off at the halftime because the game couldn't figure out that it was halftime and that I should have been getting the ball. So that's a issue, right? Because you can't play the game that way. You can't whether if it's an option, it should work. So that's the thing that has happened. Additionally, if you do that, you can't do halftime adjustments because it goes into the simulation thing, right? Mm-hmm. And that's fine. That's part of the aspect of playing it that way, I guess. That's whatever. So there's little things like that. But then I saw something interesting. Somebody posted something about how when you're playing online, the worst people in the world are the people who run the clock without using the run the clock feature, the tempo feature, right? And they're they just let the 45 seconds tick off before instead of having the clock auto accelerate for you when you come to line up. So it's already at 9 seconds when you line up. Going back several versions of this game, if I'm playing another user, that feature doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Yep. If I'm in a user game,
yeah.
If I'm in a CPU game,
it does.
It's fine.
But if I'm playing against another human being, it doesn't work. So this guy is out here pissed that these people aren't doing it, but it's quite possible the game's not letting them do it. So there's another again, it's these little details, these little glitches, these little things that, well, this is a feature of the game, but it doesn't work. So it's not a feature. Mm-hmm. It's a lie.
Strong words from a man who knows how to ski. Sorry. I had to. That's a Better Off Dead. Anyhow.
What else you got about Madden?
I'm not going to use that term, about jumping on somebody's back and stuff like that. But anyhow,
thank you.
But to kind of follow up some of that is, so instead of opposite of what Tim has done is instead what I did was I was like, okay, I'm just going to sim the win because I won it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And, well, you know what? I didn't get any progression snaps at all for any of my hidden developers.
Oh, that's so stupid.
And the stats didn't count for that game at all. It was just I was like, okay, so what the heck happened?
Yeah.
It's like they didn't even play it.
That's dumb.
So that was kind of, yeah. I didn't get any development stuff, no coaching points, nothing like that. That week was lost in the ether of etherness.
Yeah.
In the ether world.
It's gone. It's another universe. Yes. So, it's in the multiverse somewhere.
Yes. So that was kind of what I wanted to say about that.
And that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about franchise. The future franchise specifically, right?
What future? Oh, sorry.
Well, don't take the punchline. Okay, so one of the lies that they keep telling us is that
He's strong with the lies, man.
Is that Madden is a live service.
So what's live about it? Oh, wait, yeah. Roster updates.
Right. So maybe for Mutt. Okay, like I will concede.
Even that hasn't this year. They're
I
like, whatever.
I'm not saying it's great, but I'm saying that like you can make an argument that the way MUT runs is defined as a live service, right?
Yeah.
But the way franchise mode runs, it's not, because any substantial update has always required a reset of your league, like scouting. We didn't start our league until like November almost.
Yeah.
Because we knew that scouting wouldn't be uploaded into our current version, right? So this whole idea that Madden is a live service is in fact a lie. Like I don't care. This is a company that uses this as a buzzword because they think it's marketable and profitable to call it a live service. But what they're doing is they're disguising their inability to get these features fully fleshed at the launch of the game as being a live service. Any game that is a 1-year shelf life is not worth having something come out 9 months in to its life span, right? If the game is only viable for 12 months, then I'm not looking for content in month 10. Because in 2 months I'm going to have the new game, right? So to me, defining it as a live service doesn't make sense.
It's not like a live service such as, okay, you know what? I'm going to get the Call of Duty or the Battlefield season pass.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, a season. That's 3 months. Oh my gosh, I could do math. And guess what? I have something different, the next 3 months. It's like, Destiny or, bad examples, I guess, but different. But they're live services. Those are things like we're talking about, like, that's a live service. That's an expectation of a Battlefield or a Call of Duty. And you know what? They actually meet that expectation. Yes, there's rough spots along the way, but yeah. Like, that's the reason why you pay for a season pass.
Right. But imagine having to like start your progression over to get access to a Call of Duty update or a or a Fortnite update or whatever it is, like.
Well, unfortunately, yeah, you guys are going to have to start your leagues over, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were told that there would be 3 updates this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the same as last year. Last year they did 3 updates after the...
To franchise
specifically. They did 3 updates of content and what was supposed to be content and like features. And they said that we would do 3 this year. And we did 1, and that 1 was scouting, which required you to restart your league. So again, it wasn't a live service. It was a delay on being able to enjoy your experience. And then we're supposed to get 2 more. And we didn't hear anything.
By the way, as we're recording this, Sunday is the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Sunday is the Super Bowl's coming up. We're a week away from the Super Bowl. Less than a week.
Okay.
So football season is about to be over, and we don't have either of these 2 new things. And then there was a group put out a report saying that, we've heard that it's been shelved in favor of putting stuff into Madden 23. And then EA put out a statement like 2 days later, like, no, that's not true. We're still doing it. We're still going to do it.
Fake news.
And now again, here we are, less than a week from the Super Bowl, and there's nothing. We don't even know what those updates were supposed to be. Well, we do have an idea about one of them, right? So one of them is supposed to be an extension to scouting.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be, I think it's how the coaches have like additional players they can have as their key players. And there's something there, right? Because Andre talked about it in their podcast and in their scouting thing that they talked about scouting. He talked about how that was coming down the road, but it's not here. And we don't know when it's going to be here. And it looks like by the time it's here, it doesn't matter because we all got our money's worth. Well, nobody ever gets their money's worth out of Madden, but we're all done with the game at this point, right? So where are these 2 updates? Nobody knows. And are they going to be worthwhile? Probably not.
No. Because they already got your money.
Yeah. Joke's on us.
Yeah. And you know what? We're going to be paying for it next year just to keep the league alive.
No, look, I'll be honest. When I bought the game, I didn't expect there to be 3 substantial updates.
I didn't either, but I expected, I guess, more by now.
Yeah.
With how they
Positioned it. Yeah.
With how they positioned.
They really tried to kind of come out on this community run and like the importance of the franchise community at the launch of the game, right? And I think another aspect of when we talk about the future of the franchise of Madden, they did Making Madden. They did this podcast, Making Madden, right? Well, much like us, they haven't put out a new episode since the launch of the game.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? That content wasn't bad content. That podcast was not a bad podcast. There were some insights in there, and there was some conversation, and it kind of helps you understand where some of these guys that were designing the game were coming from. Whether you agree or disagree with them, that's not the point. The point is that like it was information that provided context to what was happening with the game, right?
Yep.
And they were excited about it. And then they all just disappeared after their game came out. And everybody saw that what they promised wasn't there.
Some of them aren't even doing that anymore. They're doing NCAA. And yeah, anyhow.
Yeah, that's part of that report, right? Is that they're moving this team over to NCAA, which let's talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I love NCAA. That was my franchise. Like, so back in the 2000s, I stopped buying Madden, and I searched and searched and searched for video games that would give me a professional football, so an NFL feel. I mean, I did like the NBA Fever. I'm not NBA. The Fever, the one with the Peyton Manning on the cover and everything like that. I did that one, but there was NFL Fever. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't play that.
There were several different ones that I did, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. But what I really settled on was the 2K game.
Sure.
For NFL. But I dove completely wholeheartedly into college football, which became NCAA football.
Yeah.
And that was my, like growing up around a college football team and in a town and everything like that. That was my bread and butter. But I've learned as an adult, I have to tamper, like beat down my expectations.
Yeah.
Because Tiburon's still making it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it would be different if it was a different developer. But I don't really think they're just going to put a different label on it.
Yeah. Well, think about everything you loved about the last NCAA games, right? Or even the games before that were NCAA. The engagement of the game, the way the game played, the way the game felt.
The mascot game.
The mascot game, yeah. Recruiting, like whether it was the pitch recruiting or even the point system recruiting, both of those are more engaging than scouting is in the current Madden, even with the new revamped scouting, right? Like, and that's the big drawback of the current scouting system is it's not engaging. But, those things kept you engaged. So what
you had to get those recruits too.
Yeah, absolutely. You you had to do it, and like you would finish a game and you wanted to get to the next week to see if your recruiting and your game plan paid off, if your visits enjoyed the game that they went to, and like how much points you gained and how much favor you gained with those recruits, right? So like you just didn't want to turn the game off.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think NCAA is going to look more like from a recruiting standpoint? Do you think it's going to look like NCAA 14, or do you think it's going to look like Madden scouting? Because here's what they're doing. They're taking Madden and they're reskinning it and trying to add the features to it, right? Everything you hate about Madden is going to be in this new NCAA game.
At least allegedly.
There's no reason to believe it wouldn't be. Right? We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
You know, like you have a track record because you keep doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and why would I believe anything other than this report that they're taking Madden and making it the same? And they hired a couple guys that worked on that that NCAA revamped thing where they updated NCAA football.
Yeah.
Which has been awesome in the community. People have been loving it. But we've seen this before. You know, now these guys actually are doing some like developing and coding where like guys like Andre and Deuce were not. They were just content creators, right? It was different. It was kind of a different feel, right? So I wonder how much they're going to impact the development of this game, hiring some of those guys. Because they did a fantastic job with the college football revamp by all accounts, right? But this game is going to be Madden with college teams. And you and I were talking about this, and I brought this up. Why now? Was it because there's like, well, now it's time to have a quality NCAA experience? No. That's not why they're doing this now. Why now? Because of NIL. Why now? Because now I can have a MUT game with all of your favorite college players in it. I can now monetize Kenny Pickett before he graduates. And I can monetize Caleb Williams at USC. And I can monetize
USC.
Yeah, he's at USC.
I know.
And I can monetize Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. You know. Do you see what I'm saying?
Sorry, he's just throwing out these things.
I've been paying attention to this transfer.
Oh
portal,
yeah, transfer portal is crazy, man.
Because I'm trying to get that draft class right. You know, but and like everybody went to Alabama, but
Gabriel.
Yeah.
At Oklahoma?
At OU? Don't get, yeah. Okay, sure. Good luck. Thank God you're still in the Big 12. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there.
You know, the point is.
How many teams? No, but yeah, I'm not going to. Yeah.
The point is, they can now monetize how many of these NCAA schools and how many of these college players that they couldn't before. They're doing this because they want to make $1 billion off of college football ultimate team. Would you call that CFUT? What do you call that? Is it college ultimate? Is it cut? I don't know what to call it.
But CFUT. I need a license plate that now says CFUT on it. Okay.
Right. So everybody that wants to look back at the like the thing that defined previous NCAA games were franchise and career modes.
Yep.
What's going to define what's going forward is going to be Ultimate Team.
But as a franchise guy, I don't like that.
Well, no, I don't.
Not unless it benefits me, you know. So, like, the thing that I would like is okay, you know, like. So the things that I would like about it, if it's anything to resemble the previous NCAA's, because those were better than any of these versions of the Madden.
Yes, they are.
Is like what you were saying, scouting. That's the one area where you can completely level the field, especially if you're doing a CFM.
Yeah.
Because then the Chads of the world, you could still compete with the Chads of the world. And I'm saying that in a nice way. Like, so Chad, I love him, but he does trade for, that's how he plays, right?
He builds a super team, builds the best overall players that he can.
And so there's still a level of chance that I have against a super team, you know, a blue blood, if you will, right? You know, and I could do that with, you know, Wyoming.
Yeah.
Arkansas State. East Carolina. Coastal Carolina.
I'm using ECU right now in NCAA.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
What you'll find is that because of the true fan that I am, I don't like to use my Missouri Tigers that game because I don't want to mess it up.
I get it. I hate using St. Louis teams in sports games. I don't have to worry about that in football anymore. Thanks, NFL.
Thank you, Stan.
Thanks, Dan.
Oh no, he's going by Eastan. No, my bad.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
What an idiot.
Yeah. Enos. Yeah.
Swear to God. Yeah. But you're right. Like recruiting, like you put all that effort into recruiting, you develop your coach to be a good recruiter, and you could get the right player at the right time. So I started as the offensive coordinator for Tulsa in my last playthrough of NCAA 14.
Golden Hurricane.
Yeah. And in my first year there, I started recruiting a quarterback who was a 3-star quarterback, and he turned out to be a gem, right? So he's this 3-star quarterback that turns out to be a 77 overall dual threat type quarterback. I can do something with a 77 overall freshman quarterback in NCAA football in a way that I can't with a 77 overall rookie quarterback in Madden. For one, when I run the ball, I'm not going to fumble every time I run. But I digress.
Truss.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
And I turned Tulsa into a powerhouse for the next 4 years with this guy as my quarterback. And, like there are things about this game. People are getting so excited about this new NCAA and talking about recruiting's got to be good, but the transfer portal is going to have to make a difference. And you're going to have to represent the transfer portal right. You know what I mean? And so there's some great ideas from content creators out there about that. Yeah, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do a good job at that. Do you know why? Because they don't have to. Because it's about MUT. It's about
money.
It's about CFUT is what it's about. CFUT. Okay. So
we need to have T-shirts now.
Yes,
it's about CFUT.
It's about CFUT. So, but like I have incredibly low expectations. Yeah. Other than the game will look pretty in screenshots.
Yeah. In still images.
It's going to look beautiful on the box. But NCAA football, very low expectations.
I want to believe.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'm Mulder.
I'm definitely Scully.
Scully's hot.
So here's the one feature that I really hope. Yes, dang. Here's the one feature I really hope gets in there from previous versions of the game is the exporting of the draft classes. I really, especially as somebody who spends a lot of time making draft classes.
That would be nice.
I would really love for that to be a thing. And I would love it if you could import it and edit it when you import it too. So
one thing that I wonder if they'll do, that was a huge thing, was importing player names, the likenesses and whatnot. I don't know if they're going to do that because of the NIL, right?
Well, the rumor is that the idea here is that they're going to be they were willing to pay players back then. And that with NIL, they're going to pay people for their likeness, right?
Yeah.
But do they do that for everyone?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, right. So it's not going to be community driven. It's going to be content based on the developer driven.
Yeah, I mean,
because they're gonna control it.
I hope they have a different ratings team for sure. Because I'm convinced that guys like Andre don't even watch college football.
He does.
No, he doesn't.
He does.
He watches
film.
He watches quote unquote film.
He doesn't watch film.
But he only does it at certain points of the season when he has to start creating the rookies for the next game. Yeah. You'll see him on Twitter talking about, I haven't really dove into any of the quarterbacks this year.
Speak the truth.
Right. So he's not.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the time to spend on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In his role there. So I would love it if they did something different there around ratings. And you already heard me say that overall ratings is a concern and an issue with the game to begin with, in my opinion. So who's winning the Super Bowl?
I didn't hear you through there. You know, yeah. Who's winning the Super Bowl?
Who's winning the Super Bowl?
Ooh. So this is really tough here. So Tim and I can both tell you our displeasure for the owner and the upper management of the Anaheim team. Oh wait, no, they're not in Anaheim. They're in Inglewood.
Inglewood. Yeah, the Inglewood Rams.
But their facilities in it's north of there, I thought. But anyhow,
I don't know.
so here's the main thing: is I like some of the players of the Rams, and I'll actually I love Cooper Kupp, and Matthew Stafford. I want the dude to succeed. I've always liked Stafford.
Yeah, Stafford.
But I don't. So one of the hardest things, and I turned it off really quickly as soon as I saw Mr. Easton up there.
Yeah.
On the stage, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so you could listen to past episodes. I have a different understanding of him than most individuals do because, well, I grew up in the town where he has like half of the acreage, that kind of thing.
Wow,
okay. Him and the Walton family, which are actually the Lauries, I went to the same high school as Sam Walton. I graduated from the same high school. So that just tells you right there. So I have a little bit of a different aspect of that kind of thing. And I just don't like the dude. And I don't wish ill on him or anything like that, but that was kind of the final straw in the hat for me was whenever he picked the team up and left, right?
Yeah.
Well, not the final straw. The litigation was bad too. So I don't want him to be up there. And then I look on the other side of the fence and I sit there and I look at Joe Burrow and I'm like, there's an Ohio kid.
Yeah.
That, yeah. He just does his own thing. And he's very cool, calm, collect about everything there. And you just want to root for a guy like that.
Yeah, you do. There's a lot to like about Joey B.
Yeah. And I mean, what he's done in 2 years in the league, like we literally saw him growing up in this playoffs. You know, last year, like last offseason, people were like, "Whoa, you know that quarterback that went number 6 overall is probably better than the number 1 overall." Well, you're not hearing that anymore now.
Nope.
Right? And now I love Herbert too.
Herbert's great.
Herbert's great. So I actually like both of them for who they are because they're comfortable in their own skin and they're very different individuals.
Yes, they are.
And I want to root for people like that.
100%.
So that's the tough part. So would it be better to, have it in Cincinnati? For the team, yes. All owners have their own thing.
Yeah.
Paul Brown has his own thing.
Yeah, there's not an owner out there that is spotless.
No.
Only 2 of them voted against the Rams leaving, and one of them
is no longer an owner.
No longer an owner because he was an awful person. Yet Snyder still has his team. But again, I keep digressing. No, I'm right there with you. And I know there's a lot of people that aren't from St. Louis that don't understand what happened with the Rams. I would recommend a podcast called Conduct Detrimental if you really want to understand like what happened in St. Louis, the history. They have some great insights, as well as the lawsuit that just got settled.
Yeah,
and which we should have got. That should have gone further than it did, but just let it sink in that the NFL gave St. Louis $780 million to stop trying to sue them for breaking their, for breaking their bylaws. So, like, you don't give out that kind of money to just make something go away because it's a nuisance. You make it go, you're wanting it to go away because it's true.
They didn't want that stuff to leak.
No, there's a lot of, and now that some of it might get leaked anyway with some of the Washington football team stuff going on, but or excuse me, the Commanders, but but like back to the Super Bowl, like you're right. It's difficult because you like the players. I love Aaron Donald. Cooper Kupp's a baller. Yeah, Matthew Stafford's a great guy. Yeah. But I want to see. I want to see an Ohio kid and Joey Burrow take an Ohio team, a hometown team, to Los Angeles against the Los Angeles Rams and defeat the team whose owner
in their stadium,
whose owner took them out of his hometown.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, by the way, for those who don't know, I keep on calling him E-Stan. Well, he's named after two Hall of Fame, St. Louis baseball players.
Yeah.
Enos Slaughter and Stan Musial.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And Stan Kroenke should be in the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame of liars. And you
can't reach the button.
And to your point, like I even like some of the staff there. I like McVay.
I like McVay.
I even like Les Snead.
I like Snead, but everybody above Snead, I don't trust.
Right. I feel like Snead wasn't aggressive in St. Louis because the Kevin Dimoffs and the Stan Kroenkes told him he couldn't be because they needed to lose.
There was an agenda, and Snead knew that he was going to be safe.
Yeah.
And so, of course, if he's going to be safe, he hires Mr. 7-9 himself.
Right.
Who's going to go 7-9 in the USFL
That's
or whatever?
Well, he's going to go like 3-4, and then they're going to run out of money. But
7-9.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I hope it's a fun and entertaining thing to make it more about the game and the players. Like, it's so hard to want to even think about betting against Joe Burrow. On paper, you have to think the Rams are going to win.
But the thing is man. So it's going to be impact plays.
Yeah.
Who can make those impact plays down the stretch for the total of the game, right? And not make that bonehead play, right?
Yeah.
The Jimmy G play.
Yeah, well, yeah. And so you're going to have Burrow against Stafford trying to make those plays, right?
But they're not really against each other.
Well, like in a way. And then you're going to have OBJ and Cooper Kupp against T. Higgins and Chase.
Golly. No, well, you have. So, okay, let's break this down here a little bit, okay? Because this is interesting because a lot of people are gonna like say, oh, well, OBJ, Cooper Kupp, you know, those two, they stand pretty well on their own, right?
Excellent players.
I love that receiver group for Cincinnati because you don't know who's gonna get it. Yeah. Joe Burrow doesn't like. He's like, okay, whoever's open.
Yeah.
And they all get open. Boyd, does all this underneath stuff, and then you have Higgins and you have Chase.
Yeah.
And then you got the tight ends that occasionally go in there. And I'm not the biggest Joe Mixon fan because of his past stuff, but he buys in, to that team concept and everything. And so, and Joe Burrow's doing this all with a line that is average at best. I mean,
on their best days, they're average.
Well, so they're better than they were last year because they're working there's a lot of continuity within the squad.
Yeah.
But, they need some, to do some stuff to continue that growth on that. So it's a very different squad, but they're young on defense too.
Yeah.
And so they fly around a lot.
Yeah. So I think if you look at this year, this playoffs, Cincinnati has won all of their games on a field goal in the playoffs this year, right?
Yeah.
Like every single one of their games came down to a field goal at the end to end the game, whether it was in overtime or at the end of the clock, And McPherson, what a great kicker, right? What a great story about him. But that means that what they've been doing and what they're going to have to do against the Rams is they have to keep up with them. They have to be punch for punch. And sometimes I wonder if that defense can do it.
So that's the tough thing. Like, and I keep on going back and forth because I'm like, so the Rams defense, how they beat you is they make you play into their strengths, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously that's every defense, but with the Rams, it's very much we have certain players that are paid to do certain jobs very, very efficiently and good. Right. So you have Ramsey, you have Donald, and then also a guy who's actually been a pretty good impact for them is Von Miller. Now he can. The difference is that I think that Sample and Uzama can actually put Miller on his butt.
Well, yeah, they probably could.
They're good blocking tight ends.
If Uzama's fully healthy.
If that ankle and yeah. But from what I hear,
he plans to play.
Yes. Sorry, technical difficulty there. So it really goes down to, okay, well, which grouping I think is going to be better. So the safety play and linebacker play is probably going to be more important actually than the corner play.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Can the safeties keep stuff in front of them? Can the linebackers match up?
From what I've seen, Weddle's playing pretty good. He's at least out there making,
Yeah.
He's making plays. He's doing things. I mean, maybe he's not like, cutting routes and whatnot. But
Scott was looking better than Weddle.
Was he?
The guy out of Penn State was looking pretty good whenever I watched some of that, and I was like, oh, okay, because he's had to step up into, a role because of depth issues and whatnot. So, but I just think that Bates is, he's pretty good.
He's a problem, yeah.
So we'll see. If you can't retain Cooper Kupp, though, yeah.
Yeah.
Because then that means that OBJ is going to be somewhere doing something too. So
right.
It's just one of those things, like, you keep it in front of you, too high.
Yeah.
Too high safeties.
Yeah.
Too high.
Well, man, this has been a nice long episode, but we had several months to catch up on. Last time we recorded, the season hadn't started.
Now it's almost done.
Madden hadn't come out, and it's been done for 6 months.
I would give it longer than that.
Yeah. It's been done since 2020.
Yeah, it's been good to actually do this again. We may do a little bit more in the off season. I would like to kind of branch out a little bit more, I think, personally. Yeah. I think, that's one thing that both of us, because we can sit here and talk about how much we dislike certain aspects of the game, but honestly, we just love football. So
yeah, we'd rather talk about something we want to, something we enjoy. So, and that's the unfortunate part about starting a Madden podcast is we had hoped that we would enjoy it more.
We enjoy like the recording and everything like that, but then I don't like to be Mr. Negative. That's the reason why I have Tim over here.
Yeah, I love being Mr. Negative.
But as always, Chad, don't make any more trades and play your game.
Yeah, Chad. I've got to figure out these buttons. Play your game, Chad.